Give me a sense of where you think things stand right now. We've been talking a lot about the trade issue, but also questions about, where exactly the Fed is. Are we continuing on this trajectory? Weigh the risks in some things that are kind of keeping you up at night right now.
Right. So if we could, and we can't, isolate the Fed and trade and just look at the underlying global economy, I kind of am a glass half full sort of guy. I think the global economy is still on solid footing. I think China is still pretty stable. EM offers some great valuations, but okay, now we have to obviously bring the Fed into play, and we are making the bet that the Fed is going to listen to the yield curve. They're not going to power ahead. They're going to remove that fourth rate hike this year. And on the trade side, this is where it gets a little questionable, but basically we are betting that Trump wants the Republicans to do well in the November midterm election. And what does that mean? It means that he's got to sort of hit the brakes on the trade tension here. So, yeah, it's kind of a rosy scenario, but that's how we kind of expect things to play out.
Let me press you on the Fed issue, because it sounds like you think the Fed is being too hawkish right now.
Yeah.
What do you think the yield curve is saying, and what do you think the Fed needs to consider if at least they are going to pause right now in the rate cycle?
Right. So the good thing is that Powell in his testimony this week has told us that the Fed is talking a lot about the shape of the yield curve. So I think the yield curve, and I'm old school, so I think it's either telling us one of two things. One is that, hey, growth might not be quite as strong. And again, I'd mentioned that Powell, because of the trade uncertainty, the corporate sector for now appears to be sort of pulling back a little bit on some CapEx. The other message embedded in the yield curve, and this one I definitely believe, is that, hey, inflation isn't going to get out of hand. The Fed's not behind the curve. They've tightened enough. Hey, I think they should do the 3 this year and then just sort of stop on that fourth one and wait to see how things unfold.